Good morning, everyone. Thanks for hopping on today's webinar. We'll give a few minutes for everyone to join. All right, well, thanks, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started now that people have joined. So thanks, everyone. Today, um, what we're going to want to talk about a little bit is company announcements and how email might not be the best way to send these. I'm Joseph Hammett. I'm the head of sales at HR Cloud. And like I said, today we're going to talk about a challenge I know many of you deal with every single week. And that's getting important company announcements out to frontline employees. This session is called Why Your Company Announcements Are Dying in Email and What Actually Works. And what we're going to focus on today are practical, real-world communication problems across multiple location and remote-based teams, especially in industries that you might be in, like healthcare, retail, manufacturing, and food and beverage. This isn't about blaming email or adding more noise. It's about understanding how frontline communication had changed and what actually works today. Okay, so here's how we'll spend the next few minutes together. First, we'll look at why email is failing frontline teams using real engagement data and real operational realities. Then, we'll talk about what actually works instead and why a mobile-first, feed-based communication is becoming the standard. Next, I'll share a real case study from Toyota Manufacturing and Handling. And this is a large multi-location manufacturing organization in the US using some of the things we're talking about today. And last, we'll move into a short live demo so I can show you what this looks like, how it works, and how it can be used in your type of industries. And after that, we'll walk through a simple implementation roadmap you can realistically follow. Then we'll leave time for Q&A and close with next steps. So let's start with the core problem. So here's the reality. Across frontline heavy industries, most company emails are never opened. In fact, studies show that nearly 87% of company emails never reach frontline workers in any meaningful way. And this isn't because employees don't care. It's because frontline employees don't sit at desks, they don't live in email, and they often don't check company inboxes even if they have an email, especially during shifts. Yet, oftentimes, we're still relying on email for important things such as policy updates, safety announcements, schedule changes, and leadership messages to the organization. So basically, these messages get sent, but they're often never seen, and we have no way of knowing whether they've been seen or not. So email fails for a few practical reasons. First, many frontline workers don't even have company email accounts. It's expensive, not everybody has it, and even the ones that do have it don't always use it. So in fact, research shows that over 60% of frontline workers don't have regular access to company emails during their workday. Because they're not sitting at desks or checking emails during shifts. They're out working in the field on the production floor. So in reality, most emails don't reach the employees directly. They go to managers or supervisors who are then expected to pass that information along verbally or during quick huddles or post something in a shared space like a break room. And this creates really two problems. Messages get delayed, diluted, or missed entirely. And managers become the communication bottleneck, even though communication shouldn't depend on memory or availability. Second, even for managers who do have email inbox overload is a real thing. Important internal updates get buried under vendor emails, scheduling requests, and other operational noise. And finally, email isn't mobile first or interactive. There's no easy way to confirm visibility, gather feedback, or create engagement around these particular messages. So the issue isn't effort or intent. It's that email simply isn't built for how frontline workers actually happens today. Oops, sorry. So what really works today? So organizations that solve this problem don't send more emails because that just exacerbates the problem. Instead, they change how communication works. What actually works is mobile first communication, feed-based updates that employees actually open, two-way interaction, so not just one-way broadcasting like an email, and using other mediums such as sending SMS and push notifications for critical message. And this leads us to, instead of asking, did we send it? We start to ask, did our people actually see it? Did they understand it? Have they responded? That shift makes all the difference. Sorry. So let's make this concrete with a real example. Toyota Material Handling operates across 230 locations across North America with thousands of employees in a manufacturing environment, either frontline workers, production floor, field-based employees. Before switching programs and platforms, they relied on a traditional communication app that pushed information, much like email, but didn't drive interaction. Employees couldn't easily engage with these messages. Login issues caused frustrations. Messages felt one-sided. Toyota really needed a way to reach employees on their phone where they are. They wanted to encourage interaction and feedback, create two-way interactions rather than one-way broadcasts, and they wanted to build a stronger connection across locations and teams. So after implementing a mobile-first engagement platform, employees began actively commenting, reacting, and participating in company communication directly from their smartphones or tablets in the field and the production floor. One of the biggest outcomes was stronger connection, not just between employees and leadership, but across teams and locations. So at this point, I'm going to pause and walk you through a short live demo of this type of communication, specifically with our Workmates platform. As you watch, I want you to pay attention to a few core things. First, how easy it is for employees to receive updates. How announcements appear in a familiar feed and in multiple places. How interaction can happen naturally, organically, with comments, reactions, and acknowledgements. And how visibility and engagement are tracked in real time. This isn't about adding another tool. It's about replacing ineffective communication with something employees actually use. All right, so within the Workmates application, one of the core features that you can do, besides just regular communication through feeds and everything, is a tool that we call announcements. So what an announcement allows you to do is post to the company feed. You can also post to different teams, locations, and really, pintail exactly where you want that information to be sent. You put the communication in here. You can create a newsletter as well. But really the big difference here is the way you can get this communication sent out. If it's an emergency or very urgent scenario, you can ensure that this message is sent via direct text message. This is going to allow them to get that message without having to go through a push notification, an email, again, the email they may never see to access this important information. And then the second thing, and this is really the big thing about today's call, is that we can do a mandatory read post, even require a signature. So beyond them just receiving this information, this is going to ensure that they've seen it. They're going to acknowledge that they've seen it, or even sign it if you would like. So once I push one of these posts out, it's going to show up in multiple places. They're going to get those notifications and text messages that we talked about. Those messages are going to be pinned right up at the top of the feed. There's extra widgets that you can add into the feed and into the homepage as well so that they can easily see this information. And then it's also all these announcements are stored in a central place. So if there was an announcement and I was like, what was that announcement about last week? Maybe it was an important update from benefits. I can go ahead and search and pull that information up and say, oh yeah, open enrollment begins on May 1st. So now I have my question answered immediately. And then from an admin side, I can easily go in here and pull up these posts, pull up acknowledgement or the acknowledgement information, and beyond just seeing overall engagement. So, how many people are engaging with this? What kind of likes, comments, reactions are happening? What's the overall reach? How many impressions? So how many touches has this had? I can also see who in the organization has confirmed or acknowledged this post and who hasn't. So if we go in here and maybe log in as somebody really fast that hasn't acknowledged this yet, so we'll pretend that we're logging in as Alicia here. Notice I have a mandatory repost right here. So I can go ahead, click read. And now it's going to ask me to read through this. And I'm going to confirm that I've read and fully acknowledged this post. So now my organization knows that I've read and acknowledged this particular important update, as I can see through the analytics that we just looked at. So to kind of summarize, what Workmates allows you to do is push out important information through a mobile-first communication tool that meets your employees where they're at. Furthermore, you can create additional urgency and communication around these posts, such as text messages, read receipts, and then lastly, you're going to make sure you can acknowledge that they can acknowledge that they've received this information. So this is going to remove any gray area of, did they get that information? Who still hasn't seen this information? I can even push out initial notifications to make sure that they do see this. So we'll return back here. So let's talk about really a big thing. How can I implement something like this? How can I roll this out to ensure that it's used effectively and has a high level engagement? So once organizations see this working, the next question is always, okay, well, how do I roll this out without disrupting my current business practices? Here's a simple, proven approach. Phase one is what we call the pilot. So oftentimes, an organization will find one department or one location where a manager is really looking for something like this. They have strong cohesion, and you have a champion for the product. And what they're going to do at this location is roll it out, and they're going to really focus on announcements and this basic engagement that we just talked about to ensure information is getting sent out and acknowledgements are happening. And then in phase two, and this is something that we assist you with throughout the entire process, is you start to roll this across locations. So you have a proven case study of one of your locations, and then it's rolled out to multiple locations. And here, oftentimes, they start to bring in additional features of Workmates that we didn't necessarily touch on today, such as recognition, feedback, surveys, targeted communication. And then the last phase is really optimization. So as you start using this, you get a lot of data. What's working, what's not, how can we tweak it? And that's where we use that engagement data to refine communication, improve adoption, and support retention efforts. What this approach does is it keeps the risk low at the beginning. It creates measurable results and allows you to take effective action to improve engagement across your organization. So with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. You can use the chat or unmute yourself. If you feel more comfortable, feel free to send any questions through the chat. You can ask about anything, about frontline communication challenges that you might have, adoption and change management, or anything that we saw in our demonstration or discussion today. Or maybe you have a specific question of how this could work with your specific organization. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat and I'll go through them now. Okay, cool. So someone asked, you mentioned the challenges of email overload and the manager bottleneck in frontline communication. How do you suggest organizations measure the effectiveness of transitioning from email to mobile first and feed-based communication? So it's really difficult to at least create a baseline with email because we don't always know, what the outreach is. Sure, we can use tools that can see how many opens and clicks a particular email has had, and maybe you guys have that type of information. But what you're able to do once you move into a system like Workmates is it's going to give you an immediate feedback. So for every one of those posts that you're sending out, you have up-to-date feedback of who's seen it, who hasn't, how many clicks does it have, how many comments, reactions, what's the overall reach of this particular post. So that's going to allow you to, in real time, see how communication is happening, how the touches are happening, what you can break this down by departments and divisions and locations to find your champions and maybe stragglers that need a little bit more help or assistance with rolling something out like that. Another question is asking, so you highlighted the importance of two-way interaction and frontline communication. Can you share some best practices for encouraging employees to actively engage with the platform, especially if they've been used to one-way communication for a long time? So this is really twofold. So the first thing is, and I'll start with the second part of this, is these employees that have been used to one-way communication, oftentimes we find from our customers that their employees are actually yearning and wanting to give feedback. So as soon as they roll something out like this, it kind of just virally is used. The employees want to ask questions. They want to react or share these messages that are being sent. So it's not oftentimes something that really needs a hard push or a lot of encouragement to be used. However, really the best practices here are to start small. To ensure adoption, because there might be locations, departments, and maybe managers that have said, well, I figured out my own way to do it. We've created a group chat or a group text message that might be used, which is great, but you don't have the insight of what's going on in those particular groups. So what you do is you often will find, as I'd mentioned in the implementation rollout, a group that will be champions of this. What this does, and maybe do it for a month or so, is it creates real and effective and like tangible results for your business, showing about how this helps. So now you have champions in your organization that can bring this to their colleagues to roll out and encourage more usage. And you always have the support of your implementation staff while you're doing all this. The next question is, in the three-step roadmap, phase one focuses on piloting within a department of the location. What are some common roadblocks you've seen organizations face during the pilot phase, and how can they proactively address them? So the biggest roadblock that we've seen with early adoption is people pushing back saying, do I want to use another tool? I don't want to use another tool. I don't want to memorize another login. I don't want to have to create another password. That's really one of the most central initial pushbacks that we get with these initial rollouts from our customers. And what we've set it up to do is to allow for multiple ways for login. So they can log in using their telephone number. They can log in using, if they have the mobile app, their thumb, their face. So they're not having to memorize additional passwords. They can also use single sign-on that you guys might use within your organization. So oftentimes, this is an app that's embedded in tools that they're already using. And it's not something that they have to do more than just click on. So they don't have to create a username, password, or any of those types of things, or have to manage an additional application. And then another question here is about the case study we talked about from Toyota. And they wanted to know what were some of the unexpected challenges that they faced when rolling out this mobile first engagement platform, and how did they overcome them? If I remember correctly, really the biggest challenge that Toyota had initially while rolling this program out was very unique to their situation. And this is actually maybe a nice thing to talk about. So one of the ways that you can set this tool up is to actually create your own custom app. So instead of this being a Workmates application that your customers download from the app stores, they can download your own custom branded app. So in Toyota, it's called the Toyota Manufacturing Handling Employee App. So a big problem we had with rolling this out for them was actually something outside of our control. And that was that this custom mobile app wasn't getting approved by the App Store. I think for them specifically, it was the Apple Store. Sometimes we have that problem with Google as well. And that's where the expertise of our implementation staff and our developers are able to work through any challenges through these app stores to roll out your own custom app. And that's a nice thing to talk about because you can create this as a very custom branded um, application for your organization. And here, one last question. So looking ahead, how do I see AI and automation playing a role in optimizing frontline communication, especially in industries with high turnover seasonal staff? Well, it's actually already there. So what we've done, and I'll just go into these feeds, is we've actually, and this is something you can opt into if you're a user of our system, is we've actually built AI directly into the tool. So what this allows you to do is instead of having to figure out, how to draft a company update. Just like we use AI in our everyday lives, I might go into ChatGPT and help it formulate a certain email that I want to send out to customers that we talk to or something like that. We've embedded this directly in the content creation within the system. So instead of drafting this on my own, I can say, hey, AI, I want to send a company update out to the organization detailing these 3 and 4 steps. Put this in a familiar light tone, all those different things, all those strategies we can use AI. It's already built into the tool. Also, AI's next step is really about, and it's probably the best thing AI can do, and that is sort of looking at macro data. So AI is able to show you trends that you might not be able to see through dashboards and everything like that. So those are the next steps with AI. And it looks like there's no more questions. So thank you, everybody, for joining today's call. And, the idea here is that we want to make communication visible. We want to make it accessible. We want to make sure that it has a high level engagement. So if you'd like to explore this further or see how it would work for your organization, you're welcome to book a personal demo with us. You can email me through the calendar invite directly. My phone number is also in there if you'd like to call me directly, or you can go to our website, find a time directly on there to meet with us, or just email us at sales@hrcloud.com. And thanks again. And I appreciate your time today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.